one of the first questions someone sent in this week, and one that I actually get a lot, is like, what are the main red flags that we look at during due diligence, or what are some things that would keep me from 1000% buying a park? Well, one of them would most certainly be a zoning issue, right? So you always need to get your zoning verification letter and see what the park is actually zoned for. Because if it's not zoned for as a mobile home park, it's going to, it can create a lot of problems. For example, we had a deal under contract. It was the beginning of, about a year ago now, actually. It was predominantly RV. And I want to say maybe there was 38 RVs, and the rest were mobile homes, so maybe 14 or 15 MH. We got the zoning verification letter, and it actually said it was zoned for the opposite. So it was zoned for 38 MH and only a few RVs. Now, this park had been like that forever. There were other reasons why I didn't buy this deal, but this was just one of them. The park had been like that forever, but you run the risk there, because every time, like when you're the new owner coming into this park, code enforcement likes to sniff around and hammer the new owners. Although we could have bought that park and would have been fine with what was in there, but we still run the risk of some new, overzealous code enforcement person coming in there and like talking about the zoning. We had this situation in a park to where the prior owner had actually put RVs in, and it was only zoned for MH. And so when code enforcement got all excited one time, we had to remove 10 park models, and they were like old kind of looking RV park models things. So it really hurt that property's performance because of this. So zoning is 100% a red flag. Another red flag, for me at least, is that if the homes in there are owned by one investor, right? So if you buy a park and one investor owns all the homes, right? That is a red flag for me, because you're not really in control of the park. The other guy is. Now, I will say that, one of my mentees that was in my program, we actually did a deal, and he bought the park, and it was like this, but we were able to go in and negotiate with the guy who owned all the homes at first. So it wasn't that big of a deal. It wasn't as big of a deal because we were able to work out a deal to where we actually got all the homes back from the guy, right? So you can work those deals out, but those are always red flags for me, because if the owner's charging, $400 in rent, and the Lonnie dealer or whatever you want to call him is charging $1,500, he's making a bunch of money. And if you go in and you're going to start raising the rents, he's not going to like that. And some of these guys can actually pull all the homes out, like if they really wanted to, but some of them can't, obviously. That's something that I see that would be a red flag to me. Another red flag would be, infrastructure issues. If you have a wastewater treatment plant, we're under contract on a 90 unit deal now that has a wastewater treatment plant. We're going to go and do all the inspections on that. But if that wastewater treatment plant has an issue, let's just say has a capacity for something. The wastewater treatment plants typically have a capacity for gallons per day. And if that capacity, we're going to go back and look at the records, and if that capacity has exceeded and exceeded and exceeded, and the environmental agency is coming after this particular treatment plant, that would be a red flag for me, because what you have to do to, like, let's just say you have a wastewater plant that's its gallons per day is 6,000 or 10,000 per day is what it's permitted for. If you have to make it capable of having a higher capacity, it's expensive. It's multiple six figures, up to $1 million, depending on how much you have to extend that. And the problem that you run into with some of this stuff is some of the treatment plants are, there's no room. Like, there's no room to expand this stuff. So then you run into another issue. What do you have to do? Well, you may have to tap in if something's close, but it can just be an ongoing issue, and DEP or whoever the environmental department is in that area is going to be on your ass. So I would look at that. Wastewater treatment plant issues are definitely big red flags. I'm trying to think of some other red flags off the top of my head here. Those are big. Title issues aren't necessarily red flags. I mean, all this stuff like, look, $1 million treatment plan issue. If you're buying the park for $1, okay, you can raise the money and fix the $1 million issue. So like all these issues can be fixed, and I'm sure the Lonnie dealer would take an absurd amount of cash for his homes. And if the deal makes sense, including that, maybe you can still do that. But those are some of the zoning. It's hard to fix. You can't fix. So I'm out if zoning's jacked up, right? Some municipalities won't let you bring in new homes. We don't do a lot of infill anyways, but I like to know if homes do go out, I can bring in new ones. So that's something. We were looking at some deals in Palm Bay. I believe that's the municipality, the city of Palm Bay in Florida. Like when homes, as soon as you pull out a home, I don't think you can bring in a new home, and that's a big red flag for us. I just don't really like that, even though it might not ever happen, and we might not need to bring in new homes. Yeah, I just I wouldn't like that. Other red flags in due diligence, and it's always utility stuff. If you have Orangeburg pipes, even if it's city water and city sewer, you may have Orangeburg pipes, anything like that. But even that's fixable, right? Maybe it costs you 50 grand to redo the lines in the park. If the deal's still good, you can do that, right? You're just gonna have to manage that project. That's what I would say for due diligence red flags. Yeah, I think the problem people run into is when they're buying these parks before and you've kind of been through some of this stuff. It's like, oh, it's an Orangeburg pipe park. Like, I would never do it. Yeah, right. I wouldn't do it either. I'm not going to keep the Orangeburg, but if I can redo the plumbing in the entire park, like, okay, maybe that's okay. And it's only if it's 60 grand to do that, and the deal still works at 60, if that extra 60 grand of capex, yeah, I'll still do the deal. Right. So that would still work for me. And again, like I said before, if the $1 million treatment plan issue, if I can bring that in at capex and I'm buying the park for cheap enough and the deal is still a nice deal, maybe I could deal with that. But then it comes into the headache of dealing with the shit, right? Because if you have to expand the wastewater treatment plant, I mean, I don't even know how long that's going to take, but it's not going to happen tomorrow, and it's going to be a pain in the ass. So maybe I wouldn't do that. But again, if the deal is good, I remember there was a deal, I believe it was in Lakeland a while back. They had a massive treatment plant issue. The person who bought it didn't care about the issue, and I guess they're just going to deal with it because the deal was cheap. So maybe you look at it like that, but some of the headache may not be worth it. So there's just a couple red flags I would look for in due diligence. We have a due diligence checklist that I would take a look at. If I think of any others while we're cooking off here, should I self-manage or hire a third-party management company? Okay. Well, I will say this, like, sure, you can do either one. Like, you can hire a third-party property manager. We never have, and we've never heard really great stories about them, because this is the way you got to think about it, right? So if you do hire the third-party management company, you have to incentivize them to do the right thing for your property. You have to incentivize them and make it interesting for them, because if you're just like, hey, I'm buying this park and I'm going to hire a third-party property manager and pay him 5% of the revenue. Like, if you knew the work that goes into these parks, you're like, I'm not going to do this shit for 5%. You're just not going to do that. Like, you're just not going to do that. I've heard of people hiring third-party property managers, but I would say you just need to incentivize them. And I've had people ask us if our management company would do third-party management, and we would, but like, the only thing that would make it interesting is to get involved in the equity, right? Because it's just a pain. We manage our own deals. We would do that, but you also have to think on the third party property management thing versus like us managing our own deals. The third party property management company has to be profitable, right? Us, we really look, we'd like to be profitable, but we would rather pay more for someone better to do the job versus someone else, the third party property management company. They're just trying to make money, so they're hiring the cheapest people as possible, so they may not get as quality of someone as you would. That's the way I look at it. But yeah, self-managing is hard, so that's the other thing that you have to think about. right? I would maybe partner with someone that has some experience that can direct you through that, or join our group or something. I'd love to help you with that and how to set that up. You can do either or, but it also matters on your time constraints. So the first few deals that I had, I managed them all myself. It was a pain. I did this while I still had my sales gig. Yeah, it can be done. It can be done, but you got to put your systems and processes in place. And I would say, and I would tell you that, hey, even when you only have one property or two properties, like, you need to put the systems and processes in, especially if you're trying to grow and you're trying to scale. You need to put those in as if you are going to be a big group at some point, because it's just going to make it easier to transition when you hit these break points of like 500 lots, 1,000 lots, 2,000 lots, and on and so forth. I would be wary of hiring the third party property manager, and I would just make sure the incentives are aligned to make it go well. Otherwise, you may be stuck with a bunch of problems. I mean, I've heard people that you know they had third party property managers. They didn't even do the state that they were in had required permitting. They didn't even file their yearly permitting, and after the third party property manager left, they have all this crap and like all this stuff and these problems to deal with, right? Because the third party property manager handled or hired a knucklehead to work on site at your property. You're not even there, right? In theory, it sounds good. And then you got all this stuff going on. I would say if you do go the third party property manager route, don't think it's going to be hands off. You're still going to have to go in there and sort of oversee things and handle things to a degree. So I would just look at that. Talking about networking. Next question was how do I network and build relationships with brokers, owners, and investors? There's many different ways to do this. So let's start from the brokers. So the first thing I would do is that, if you're trying to buy parks in Omaha, Nebraska, you can get on Crexy, LoopNet, Mobile Home Park Store, and see who's listing the mobile home parks in Nebraska, right? Or look those up, and whoever has a listing there, you can start calling and reaching out to those people. You may not even necessarily be interested in the listing, but you can reach out to them and say, hey, I'm looking for parks in this area, and start building that relationship with them. Take them to lunch or whatever. If you have a podcast, have them on the podcast. I don't know. But that's what I would do for brokers. You can also go to events and networking events and meet with the brokers, but I would reach out to them directly and build a personal relationship with them. And then once you close a deal with them, they're going to become more certain in your ability to close, and then you'll even have a better relationship with them. So that's how I would do it with brokers. There's mobile home park conferences. There's MHI coming up here in Orlando. I think IMN is in San Diego. I don't know if I'm going to be able to make it to that one. You can meet all these brokers and stuff at those places. You can meet the brokers and things on these Facebook groups. Our Facebook group here, like, you can meet people there. We have brokers in there. There's other Facebook groups that center around mobile home parks, so you can do it that way. I would hit all those things if I was trying to network with brokers and get my name known. And some of them, I'll just say this, some of them might think you're a wanker in the beginning. I remember the first broker I called about a deal that I should have bought, by the way, but I didn't. The broker thought I was a wanker, and he was an asshole to me. It's okay. It's okay. Whatever. You just gotta move on. Now this particular broker has actually messaged me directly and brings deals directly to me now. He doesn't remember it was me. I won't say who it is. That actually motivated me when he treated me like a wanker when I called, but it's okay. Talking about owners, building relationships with owners. So we talked about brokers. So how would you build relationships with owners? Well, you may need to clarify that. Owners of parks, or like owners that you're trying to buy from, or operators that are building portfolios, or like, who you're trying to meet with. Operators that are building portfolios, you can go to those same networking events or meet in these mobile home park groups like we have. So that's how you can meet them, the networking events. But actually, sellers, a couple different ways. So obviously, calling, and you're building relationships that way, but also joining the mobile home park associations, the local ones. A lot of the old school sellers will still be in and be joining those groups. So you can check those out. Yeah, I would do that. I mean, there was one group that I actually never went to a meeting, but just by joining, I got all the emails and contact information of a bunch of sellers that we wanted to get in contact with. Yeah, I mean, you can go that route. You can go that route. The other one is investors. Yeah, so investors, like, how would you build relationships with investors? Like, building a social media presence, an online presence, which most people don't want to do. That is a good way to do it. We don't have a big presence online, but it's definitely helped us meet more investors and things. I would also go to conferences for that. And you can't just go to any conference. You need to go to a conference where LPs are going to be, limited partners, because there are a lot of people that have funds that want to invest in real estate / mobile home parks, especially. You got to go meet them, right? You got to go meet them. And wherever that is, you're going to have to go do that. But that's what I would say, to meet LPs. Also, another thing, charity events, local charity events. You're going to meet with people with money there. You can go to, sit at the bar at the local, I don't know, here's a place called Hillstone. You can go there. The more expensive, nice places to eat. Go to happy hour. I don't drink. I'll get a club soda and lime, but you can go, have your Manhattan or whatever the hell you drink. Network with the people there at the bar. But that's how I would go and meet investors. Look, it's pretty manual. It's pretty manual to do that initially, and just getting known in the industry. So building a social media presence is probably the best way for that. Is mobile home park investing still a good opportunity in 2025? Yes, absolutely. I mean, we talked about this. I did a podcast with Kevin Bupp. I think it's going to be coming out in the next week or so. Look, there's always going to be deals out there. There's going to be bad operators. There's going to be people that bought the park and weren't able to execute on the business plan that you can go in and add value and create value on. You can do that. Like, you can go in and do that. There's always going to be deals, I guess is what I'm saying, that there's still a lot of mom and pops. Like, now, if we're talking about like the over 100 or over 150, definitely are less mom and pops. It's been pretty consolidated. But the under 100 is still very fragmented. And I would say even people that have bought in the last 5 years, people that have just bought a few parks in the last 3 years because they heard it was a great business, but then they had a dumb business plan. These guys, basically, they go in and they think they need to rehab all the homes and do all this stuff, right? And they treat it like an apartment complex. These guys always get hurt. Like, it's a shitty business plan. We're dealing with some guys right now that we've sent multiple offers on the deal, and we just can't get to their number, and they think it's worth one thing because they spent so much money rehabbing the homes, and like, I don't care. Like, it really means nothing to me, because my business model is a tenant-owned home model. So if it's a park-owned home unit, I'm converting it to tenant-owned, and so I can't pay for what they've put into the house. It just doesn't, like, they put hundreds of thousands of dollars in rehab, and like, I just can't. I'm not going to do that, right? So they're stuck in this quagmire of the business plan. So there's going to be people there. There's still opportunity to buy from those people that have operated poorly. And even good operators, like, you may buy a deal that's like, maybe out of your wheelhouse or out of the way, or something. And maybe you had some other deals come in and you weren't able to execute this business plan 100% effectively. So that could be, someone that may have a deal, but there's always going to be deals out there, I think, is the point. And the other point is, look, is mobile home park investing still a good opportunity in 2025 is the question. If you wait to buy in 2030 or 2028, 2029, you're going to be saying the same thing. Hey, it's 2029 still a good time to buy? And you're like, damn, I should have bought in 2025. Right? People now are like, damn, I should have bought in 2020. Like, I started buying stuff in 2020. I should have started in 2015. Like, it's always like that in real estate. The stuff you see now is probably going to be harder to buy next year. It's going to be more expensive. So, I mean, I think you just have to start buying and buying good deals. Like, you're not going to buy dumb shit. Yeah, I mean, I think it's still a great time to buy. There's still going to be more consolidation. I think we've got a good, 5 to 10 years left to really, really, drill down and, buy some of this stuff, and there'll still be some fragmentation, but maybe we'll all just be buying from each other at that point, or we'll find another game to play or something. But I'm of the there's always going to be deals out there for you to go and buy. Let's see. What is the best exit strategy? Selling to institutional buyers, keeping for cash flow, or converting to a different asset class? Well, I've never completely exited. Like, we're holding everything right now. Obviously, selling to institutional buyers, if you can build a portfolio that actually fits their buying criteria, then yeah, I would say that that's a good exit strategy. But it also depends on what you want to do. I mean, if you get like a crazy offer, if you get an FU offer that you're like, man, I have to take this, take it. I mean, I've actually come more open to the idea of taking chips off the table at some point, because you like to grab your liquidity and kind of go play other games. And that comes with tax consequences, obviously. The more and more I hang around, the more and more I kind of like that. But, we're holding now. I like keeping for cash flow. If you have some really nice assets, they're easy to manage. You don't foresee any upcoming infrastructure issues, then maybe you keep it for cash flow. It just depends. It just depends. Or converting to a different asset class was the question. I mean, yeah, you could do that. We haven't done that. We've looked at some other asset classes. Storage is pretty cool. Small bay industrial is interesting. Retail centers. There's money to be made, and there's yield in some of those things. But I don't know. It just kind of depends on the situation. I'm not like, oh my God, I have to do it this way. It's sort of like, hey, what is the market, showing us now? And what is the market doing, so we can, sort of play it from there? I have investors ask me this question all the time. Are you a buy and hold or sell? Well, I think generally I like to buy, turn around, refinance, recycle capital. We're in it for no money. We're making money. And then that gives us the opportunity. So if we buy a deal today, my goal is to refinance and get most of everyone's cash out within a year or two. Then we pretty much own the asset with no money in it, and we're just cash flowing it, or little money in it. So that gives us more options as we move forward in the future. It's like, hey, we've already gotten a lot from this deal. Yes, we're going to increase value more, but hey, maybe we do sell in year 4 or year 5, or it gives us an opportunity maybe to refinance again, and we take more cash out, and then we own that asset with literally no money in it. Like, we've taken more money out of it than we have in it. We have assets like that, and then we just keep it for cash flow, right? That's really my strategy. And then if you want to sell, it's like, hey, we still have equity in here, we can sell. But I like that business model right now for me, and that doesn't say it's going to change, but it doesn't say it couldn't change. But I like that business model now, because it gives us some flexibility in, like, hey, our investors, they've already gotten their money back, so maybe we can pitch it, or we can refinance the thing again. So yeah, I think I'm a combination of all of them. I don't think there's like, hey, this is the best exit strategy. I think it's pretty situational depending on what it is. I mean, if you have a big portfolio and a private equity company comes and offers you a 3.5 cap for it, yeah, I'd probably take it. I'd probably wait until the next rent increase is going to go in, whatever day that is. And hey, we're going to sell on this day. So you're going to capture that extra revenue, the 3.5 cap. That's a big multiple. It's a big multiple. So that's what I would look at. But again, I don't think there's any best exit strategy. Cool. So look, yeah, I think we're almost at time's up for this week. So we'll be back with you guys next week for next week's Q&A, and hopefully we have the bugs worked out in this damn thing, because this was kind of annoying trying to get this on today. But it's okay. We'll get through it. So join our Facebook group here at Mobile Home Park Investing Pros. We're going to do these Q&As every week. Yeah, look, I'm excited to to help you in your mobile home park investing journey. You can reach out to me, shoot me a DM. We partner with people. We do co-GPs with people. Or you can check out some of our coaching programs. Would love to help you buy your first deal. So just give us a shout, and we will see you guys next week. Thanks a lot.